somehow in the grand picture of God, I happen to be at the right place at the right time. For a good work, people are really, they want to come and do this. Everyone wants to do. They need some way they can. When a patient walks into your clinic and he submits his eye to you for his treatment, and he's done you a great favor. The least you can do is send him to the right place. Very early in the practice, we took a conscious call. My name would not appear anywhere, even in the letter. So a situation came when in a crowded OPD, if I walk in, most of the patients would not even recognize me, although all of them know about it. When the patient walks out of your clinic, if he's going happy, he's going to get your patient.
Hello everyone. So in this third episode of Doctors Outside Hospital, I bring to you yet another stalwart in the field of ophthalmology. This person is not only recognized throughout the country, but also has various international recognitions. This is the person who has roamed all across the world and got cutting-edge technology and has introduced various new techniques in the field of phacoemulsification of cataract surgeries in our country. He is responsible for getting a small town like Panvel on a global scale where everybody knows about his work worldwide. I bring to you Dr. Suhas Haldipurkar, the Medical Director of Laxmi Eye Institute and Laxmi Charitable Trust. This person's journey is definitely worth listening. I hope he inspires you and everybody learns something new after this conversation. Please enjoy. Thank you. Good afternoon, sir. Thank you so much for accepting this invitation to come and have a very informal chat with me. This video, as we already mentioned, is mainly to focus towards your thought process or how you think behind becoming what you have already become. Starting from just a person to an institute, the journey I really feel is worth listening, and so I want to put this forth in front of all the young inspiring doctors. So just to begin with, sir, just to know you as a person, I just want to know who is Suhas Haldipurkar outside hospital?
That's one good question. Well, outside, I'm just one of those lucky guys. God was very kind that somehow in the grand picture of God, I happened to be at the right place at the right time.
Right.
And probably He was extremely kind and forgiving. And the society was so nice that it gave me a perfect kind of an atmosphere for me to take on whatever that came and become what I became. Well, it's like this. A guy told me once. He said, "There's no point trying to compete with someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Every day, just make sure you are becoming a better version of what you are yesterday." And that is all that I kind of followed.
Right.
And what happens is, like as an ophthalmologist, when I'm here for last maybe 43, 44 years, unless you love your work, unless you have that passion to do same thing that you have been doing all along, make it better.
Right.
You can't sustain for that long or do better. And I'm pretty happy that I have done pretty well for my branch and for myself personally.
Excellent. So well said, sir. Just to give a brief overview, like how was your childhood? How was your schooling years? How was your initial medical training? Just what would you want to say about it?
Well, I come from a small coastal town called Karwar, a beautiful place. And I come from a very well-known kind of a family. Haldipurkars in Karwar is a well-known family. In fact, that was a joint family in which I lived. There was a time when that house had 100 people staying together. The core family and the relatives and the students who came to learn. It was like a small institution by itself. And in that lived a very kind and compassionate soul called Lakshmi, my grandmother. And it is all the values that I stand by today were literally, picked up from her. And it's her legacy and good deeds that, it helps me today in the Lakshmi organization that I run, and for which I'm always indebted to such a great lady, who was there for us to really pick up good things in life. Because, what I realized today, with the values fast dwindling, if only you can have and stick to some good values, be truthful and honest, especially in our field, we can do a lot.
Agreed.
Because sometimes I always feel, for you as a patient or as a doctor, when I go looking for a patient, for a doctor, you have to really, really be lucky enough to get the right doctor.
Totally agreed.
Simply because, the values are going down. So in such an atmosphere, if I can be truthful, be honest, that itself is a great thing I'm doing to patient-doctor relationship.
Yeah. So, so everybody is told to do so, but I barely know who all are practicing this. But yeah, it's a very something which everybody should think over. Right. We got to know, like, from what I spoke to people, I remember back in the days in 1980s, 1990s, you have your ESD bike.
Yes.
And you were supposed to be called as Chashmanche doctor back in Dombivli.
Yes.
And from that place to running your own institute, having 4 centers of your own, what inspired you? What inspired you to think so big in that time?
Well, it was like this. See, the residency is a good time when it kind of helps you evaluate your personality. And then you come to know what your plus points are and what your not so plus points are. And I decided, like, I had a lot of negative points, but I had some plus points. I thought I would just focus on them and develop on them. And then when I came here, first 5 years went into consolidating my practice, trying to understand, how do I fit into this, because it was a small place. The only reason I came to Panvel was close to Bombay, so you could always be close to the cutting edge technology. Anytime I wanted to learn something, I could go there. My first requirement was, well, I'm not adequate enough today, but repeatedly I can go to Bombay and train myself and become better. Because fortunately at that time, ophthalmology is going through a golden period. It started in the 80s and it went on for another 25 years. Because that is when the lenses came. When the lenses came, it just took, it jumped into a period. And for the next 10-15 years, everything was happening so fast. Like literally we were at the edge of a seat, trying to learn something new. And those who did not, they fell by the side. And those who, stayed there, they really made it big. And then luckily for me, I would say luckily, because Panvel was a small town. Panvel had a lot of villages which are around where there were poor people. And fortunately, at that time, Sidco hadn't really come in a big way. So there was not much money, with the villagers. So it gave me an opportunity to, explore ways in which I can reach out to them. That is how the charity section started. See, what has happened is my private and my charity both exist, together. They are 2 separate buildings. Professionally, in my private, I would always go, repeatedly I would go and train myself, and whatever I learned, I would naturally use it here for my patient. At the same time, I would keep this charity open so that at least the basic services are available for poor patients.
Right.
And just one thing led to another to another. Not that what I am today was planned then, but just organically it kept growing, and I'm here as
Right.
as you see me.
No, but taking such bold decisions, sir, in maybe late 1980s, you went to Vienna, you went to Germany, you went to States, you learned a lot of phaco technology, you brought a lot of cutting edge technology back to the country. It was not that you went there, you learned there, and you thought that, oh, life is so beautiful, let's settle there. But on the other hand, you thought of getting everything back here and I got to know from people who love you that you got that one phaco machine which was the size of almost a room, and then starting everything here. So that process takes a lot of what do you say, you want to do something good for the community around you. You want to do something which is not present, which is not available. So that is something which we all should learn from you, sir. Right. Right from the early age, you were an avid teacher. You loved to teach. Do you think that teaching makes you as a practitioner stronger, or you keep yourself updated that often?
No, it's very true. Like Einstein has said, if you can explain a subject very simply to students, that really means you have understood it well.
Right.
If I have to teach something, I have to really know that topic.
Mm.
And then, see, because surgical, uh, you know, surgical stuff was my forte.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I said I'm lucky, because I was surgically skillful. So that was something that I could easily pick up new things and at the same time share them. In fact, phaco, when it came, in the year 91 I went to train, get myself trained. In 92 I started. And then, till then, there was no phaco in the country. So I'm one of those pioneers, who helped spread this. I remember in the year 95, Sri Lanka didn't have phaco.
Mm.
And a company requested me, can we go and train them? We literally took a machine. We went to Sri Lanka, we went to different hospitals, showed them how phaco is done, and for them it was the first experience of how. Even today in India, there are several places all across where in those days for live surgeries I would go, I would demonstrate surgeries. And even today I meet quite a few of them. They say, sir, and they remember it so vividly. Only 2 days back I was in Hubli. There, one of the senior doctors told me, doctor, on this particular day you have to come here and you put a particular case, and that's how I was inspired. What I did in addition to sharing my stuff was people, luckily got inspired.
Right.
Even that inspiration was something you just,
You just need to ignite that fire, and then
really,
wildfire.
And
Excellent.
it has happened very often. So for that, I'm very, very, grateful to God, because what I believe, there are many ways in which you can pay back to the society.
Right.
And I always believe that if I can perform a surgery better and give good results to my patient, that in the simplest form is also a service.
Yeah, very true.
And then if you train someone to become as good or better doctor, that's a bigger service. See, bringing poor patients, operating them is okay. That's a community service. But this is also a much bigger service, because if you can train someone and he goes and does the same service to his patients, that's a great indirect service that you do.
Right.
And I believe, and I have always quoted this very often, that for you to be what you are today, for me to be what I am, there have been hundreds of, maybe thousands of people who have contributed. That start from your mother, then your siblings, then your relatives, everyone has, including your teachers, your neighbors, everyone has contributed. And that's why you are what you are today. So that means with age, the debt on you is so much, because you have to pay it back someday. So lucky are those who get that thought in their mind, okay, it's time I start paying back. See, pay back you have to. Earlier you start, in this lifetime you can. That's how it is.
It's an interesting mindset.
Yeah.
Excellent. Right, sir. You spoke a lot about giving back to the society. Would you want to share a few thoughts about Laxmi Charitable Institute?
Oh yeah. It's been 23, 24 years. We are a very comprehensive kind of a charity organization. In a sense, we have charity hospital, we have one charity hospital here. There's another hospital in Pali which we run. That's a Rotary hospital. They wanted us to run. For the last several years we run it. In Alibag we have a unit. Then we have multiple vision centers which we run. The whole process is this. Sitting here in a city, you can cater to people who afford less. You have people who pay you full, people who can't afford to pay you full, so they would like to get operated at charitable charges. But as you go deep into the interiors, you find the true target audience,
Right.
the poor people.
Hmm.
So if you want to serve them, then it's only when you go out into the peripheries. That was one part. Then we started an optometry college because in a eye care service, you need an optometrist to carry out some of the things that they do.
Right.
Then we started the post-graduation because post-graduation is also a very important part.
Hmm.
And we have a very successful DNB program, and then we have fellowship program. But then we've been doing this.
Yeah.
And with this, as the work started growing, we felt we can initially, that the organization was supported by us. Today it's self-sufficient. And then we tied up with Rotary.
Mhm.
Now, for last maybe 3-4 years, along with Rotary Club, we have these global grants.
Mhm.
I normally go to Europe. I go to different Rotary clubs. I give a talk on how community service. And the situation is, for us, if you want to do charity, it's so easy because you just you have plenty of people,
Right.
the target audience. They don't have this.
Hmm.
Sometimes they don't even know the concept of First time I was in Switzerland and talking about this community work. At the end of my talk, he said, "But doctor, why do you need to do this?" To that extent, they are out of touch with this. And now I gave them an opportunity. Okay, you tie up with us,
Hmm.
and they said you would like to come. So they came here. I took them to Pali. I took them to some village camps. They saw the reality, and then they want to have camps. So that way, this thing gradually started growing.
Okay, great. So, over when you talk about such huge missions, when you talk about such huge institutional formations, charitable institutes, a team is very important. And team building is something that not everybody can do. And that is, I feel, is more you learn from experience rather than from somebody training you. What is your take on team building, sir?
Well, that's the most stressful thing.
Hmm.
But what happens is, uh, if you are too much fastidious about all this, that you want it like this, and then it's difficult to get people, of the kind of definition or, something that you are imagining. So there are some compromises you always need to make. Initially, your temperament doesn't suit that kind of a thing. But with experience over the years, we have learned that, when you look at a person, what's important is his attitude. If his attitude is good and if he's not so competent, it's easy to, train him.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a very competent guy, but doesn't have a good attitude, then probably, early you get rid of him, better it is. So one, you have to love the work, and fortunately what has happened is, when I look at all these staff who are working in the charity section and look at their passion, it really affects you. Meaning, see, I do it because I have a larger reason to do this because I want to do. But for someone whom I've employed, even he does it with equal or more passion. Then I know that for a good work, people are really, really, they want to come and do this. Everyone wants to do. They need some way they can. And here I'm providing them facilities or some opportunities for them to join me in this. If your mission is noble, I'm sure there'll be many people who would like to join.
Right, right. In this whole journey, sir, you must have also observed that the generation of doctors from your era, as compared to one generation below you, I would consider I'm 2 generations below you. What do you think has changed? What do you think, according to you, has changed in terms of their attitude, as you just spoke? Is there anything good? Is there anything bad? What is your take on that?
Well, I cannot tell you whether it's good or bad because it is changing. The world has changed. Like in my times and much more before me. If you are talking about medical profession, you joined it because you wanted to serve. Because that was your motto. Gradually that thing got diluted. And like if I had joined to serve, then I would always find joy in serving. So my passion for my work or my vocation will never kind of get diluted. But today when someone joins, now you can look at how, the pattern of how people are choosing different subspecialties.
Mm-hmm.
Over the years, like some years, radiology was,
Booming up.
more popular than some other time. There were times when pediatric, during my time, the, the top list was pediatrics.
Okay.
That means people love to work for children. See, now what they look at is, I want to work, but I also want comfort. So they would want a limited time to work.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning your concepts have changed over the years. The reason why you want to join medical has also changed. So because during our times it was service primarily, the money would come by the way. And in any case, during our times, you never joined medical practice for monetary gains. Monetary was there by the way, but it was not the primary thing. But today what has happened is most of it, I don't blame it, it revolves around the package. What's the package that I'm going to get, and how many hours I have to work. But unfortunately, that is how the world has changed, so you can't blame. But one thing I tell you, in all this we should remember, medical profession always means it's a connect between you and your patient.
Right.
Even with all the modernization, that connect would still stay. So if that patient can trust you, if you can be truthful and honest to him in terms of giving your opinion and your suggestions, this relationship will always last.
Okay.
And that's the foundation for building up your practice.
Right. Great. So just consider a junior doctor who specifically from a surgical background, in the surgical field. Whenever he takes any decision, he thinks over what if something goes wrong. Is that a right way to think, first of all? Second thing, if at all he does mistakes, how do you cope up with those mistakes?
Well, it's like this. If I think that something is going to go wrong, very often it happens.
Okay.
So, I have realized even at this stage, suppose when I'm doing a critical step and I feel, I get that doubt, I make it a point to immediately erase that doubt. No, I do positive reinforcement. No, it's not going to, it's going to be okay. But that's very important. Second thing, especially in surgical branches, unfortunately today there's competition all over. So in surgical branches, with the kind of training that we have today in the medical college, if that candidate can spend a couple of years into his fellowship training, where he really gets some good surgical training, that will be probably much better way to start. So that way you'll never have such doubts, because most of those doubts you had when you're doing your training.
Right.
In the training, someone is covering you. So that is as far as getting those doubts are concerned. And the second part was,
If you do some mistakes.
oh yeah, that's very important. When a mistake happens, you try to cover it. You should never we cover a mistake, thinking if I tell him this, he won't like it, or he'll go to someone else. Very often, even at my stage, when I'm operating and something goes wrong, I owe it up. Only a few days back I was operating a surgeon, a very eminent surgeon, and it was taking a little longer. What had happened was the lens had broken inside. So I had to cut it, remove it, put another one. That takes a long time. I could have easily told her, whatever I could have told. I said, the lens has broken. This something never happens, and I'm just going to get it out and put another one. And she was okay with that. So like that, very often it is not that complication will not occur. It will happen in anybody's hand. But we should try and cover it. If you try and cover it, someone else is going to tell you. So it's always better that be very truthful to the patient. Because that pays you in the long run.
Right. Important. Right, sir. So even in a long run, so as a medical student gets graduation, post-graduation, super speciality. I'm pretty sure even in the field of ophthalmology, super speciality plays a very big role. Do you feel a generalist or a super specialist in your field who has a better approach, which I would like to extrapolate into other fields as well? So I'm not keeping it only to ophthalmology, but what is happening in ophthalmology?
Well, like in general, in ophthalmology also, the super specialties have come in a big way. So today, general ophthalmology is left with cataracts.
Right.
And practically all other subjects, parts have gone with a super specialty. But for a general ophthalmologist, like in the olden days, how a general practitioner had a kind of a connect with the patients, that kind of a connect, he still exists between a general ophthalmologist and his patients. What I still feel is what's lacking today is that holistic approach to patient's problem is gradually going away. It's only my advice to my youngsters: keep that holistic approach to your patient, so that that patient has that long-lasting connect with you. If he has any problem which you can't deal with, he will go to a super specialist.
Yeah.
But then he'll have lots of general problems for which he will always come to you because he has a better connect with you. See, that emotional bonding that patient will have with you. You are the one who referred him to a specialist. Specialist has done his job. Your specialist will be so very focused to that topic that he will not be concerned with other things. So that patient would always come back to you. And it's always better that you have to have your own family of patients who, because let's say you have a patient with whom you have this, and he's always going to get some other problem as long as he lives. And for that, his first contact should be you.
Right. So there's a very upcoming new term which has been spread in most of the business magazines and journals, something called as doctorpreneur. Okay, so a doctor who wants to become an entrepreneur. So I consider you as one of a successful doctorpreneur. Do you feel yourself that you did something different to get into this, or you had this mindset from the beginning so that you wanted to expand and you want to make multiple hospitals of your own?
No. I did, most of my growth has been need based. There was a time when I started almost for 10 years, I would practically handle all the subspecialties because there was no specialist. And when the specialists started coming, so subspecialists, super specialists, I obviously knew they can do it better than I do. So if I have to think in terms of my patient's well-being, let's take an example of squint. I would do squint from the first year of my practice. I would dabble with retina. I would do keratoplasty. Keratoplasty is quite a few keratoplasties in cornea I did in the first few years. But I knew my results can't be as good as someone who is properly trained. So that is how the institute I started. It was solely because my patient should get better treatment because he's put all his faith into me. See, when a patient walks into your clinic and he submits his eye to you for his treatment, and he's done you a great favor. And there, the least you can do is, send him to the right place. And that is how the institute practice started. And on all this, that as a monetary venture was never on the scene. I never thought in those terms. It was just that patient should get the best treatment. That is how people are brought together. In fact, you are saying, how did you take people along? That was the first kind of a shock to me, when you have other specialists who work with you, to deal with them, to handle them, is also another ball game.
That was my next question actually. When you have people of different mindsets, different calibers, different qualifications, how do you gel them up together?
It's difficult. For that, you have to see. It's like this. If I keep thinking all the time, look, this is my patient, and I have called you or I have brought you here and you are seeing him, but basically that patient has come to me. If this thought all the time keeps in my mind, then I can never have a good relation. The moment that patient is handed over to a specialist to take care, it's his patient.
Right.
So otherwise the institutes don't build. There are many places where there are multiple doctors working, but what happens is every patient is routed to the main doctor. And very early in the practice, we took a conscious call that my name would not appear anywhere, even in the letterhead. So a situation came when in a crowded OPD, if I walk in, most of the patients would not even recognize me, although all of them know about it, they would not recognize me. And that's the situation I wanted to create. So any specialist who works with you, he should be working independently without any interference from you. And then he is a great player to work with.
So I was just going through a lot of just Google your name and you get tons of information about Dr. Suhas Haldipurkar. But one thing when I saw is this hospital has a very strong social media presence. Do you believe in that, sir? Like you should be in this ever-changing, what do you say? I wouldn't call it marketing, but social presence. You feel that there are various occasions in which I'm pretty sure there must be a team behind who must be doing all this. But do you believe personally in that?
Well, I mean, it's a news to me.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
When you say this, today evening I'll go and just check.
No, everything is good, sir. Everything is good.
Meaning, it's not very actively done social media coverage. See, what happens is, when you work in the community, these things are picked up by somebody. Anybody who picks it and puts into print media, somehow it goes into the net. But there's not been very active effort on my part.
Okay.
But for your question, I would certainly tell you, yes, today it is necessary. It is necessary because, especially in the branches where a lot of new gadgets come, and see, most of this equipment, there is no ROI.
Right.
You buy them because you enjoy working with them, because they give you better results. Now suppose I buy a fancy microscope which is great to work with, it makes my surgery better. That doesn't really make much difference to the patient.
Right.
So that way it doesn't earn you anything. But you have it. But there are, let's say, like we have a laser, a very new laser. We haven't really talked about it. Right? It does cataract surgery so much better. It's called robotic laser. Now, unless I go actively on the social media and talk about it, because today all people are tech savvy. A young guy always is on the net, or he checks the social media, and if he sees something good, he'll always ask his parents. Finally, our patients are the elderly people.
Right.
They are not tech savvy.
Right.
So that way it does work.
Okay.
So to answer your question, yes, I think in the changing world, social media presence is a necessity.
Yes, great. So the next few questions will be like a very quick one-liners, which I want to know your views on. If not a doctor, what do you see yourself as?
Maybe a teacher.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that fits pretty well. What mistakes have you done according to you till now in the field of in your journey towards Lakshmi?
Well, see, that way I have made lots of blunders, and like I said in the beginning, I was kind enough, God was kind enough, I was forgiven for all that. But talking about ophthalmology in particular, I always regret that I should have been not in a hurry to start practice, should have spent some years going to some institute, do some proper fellowship, do some research. Because today, what I really feel that, in spite of huge amount of clinical work, we are not producing so much of research material. And to do that, you have to be really, into it.
Yeah,
I wasn't, and I rely on other people to do it. But it doesn't happen unless you are a hardcore researcher.
Right. Excellent, sir. Just to summarize everything, a life advice or an advice from an expert, a guru, a teacher, to the new upcoming who will be viewing this interview, what would you summarize this whole talk as?
Well, I would always say, be passionate, if you're taken ophthalmology, if you're taken cataract, if you're taken any subspecialty, be very passionate about it. And your learning phase, or when you're a fellow, try to put all your time to learn. That's when you really learn. And after that, to do any research, do any academic work, you're hardly going to get time. But once you are into practice, it doesn't really matter whether you have succeeded now or you're going to succeed after a couple of years. Be truthful. See what has happened. Today is a world where values are falling down. In such atmosphere, when the values are falling down, if you're one with great values, if you're really, truthful, you're honest to the patient, then you stand up. See, sometimes you feel, well, I've been so nice to the patient, still my OPD is still empty. It doesn't matter. One lady who came to me, she said, doctor, today I won't pay you consultation fee, I'll only give you one piece of advice. She said, when the patient walks out of your clinic, if he's going happy, he's going to get your patient.
Yeah, so true.
Just remember that any patient who walks in, make him happy. What will happen? You may not have a huge growth, you'll have an organic growth. And organic growth lasts for longer.
True, so true, so true. Thank you so much, sir. It's been really pleasure to learn so many great new things from you. Thank you again for spending such important time.
But I must tell you, you are doing a good job. At your time of your career, this is a great way to start.
Thank
All
you,
the
sir.
best.
Thank you, sir.